Pecha Kucha 171, Animal Man, and Maakbet. So, yeah, it's the new year. There are plans made for 2020. We will see how long into the year these last. But before that, let's talk about a seminal work from the 90s, Animal Man. This is Grant Morrison's run on the bit part DC superhero you've never heard of. And that's kind of the point. This is a lot like Frank Miller's run on Daredevil, which is also highly critically acclaimed because it reinvents the character, and it's a very interesting meta-commentary on American comic books in general. Grant Morrison does his own foreword. He makes jokes about that in the foreword, while kind of recapping his experience working on this nobody character who you can tell much more interesting stories on because, you know, he's not Superman. No one's really betting the bank on this guy. So who is he? His name's something like, I don't remember, some Buddy Baker. He's married with 2 kids living in the suburbs. He quit being a superhero. He's trying to get back into the game. He's talking to his wife about it as a career, signing up with the Justice League and actually getting a salary. His powers are he can absorb powers from animals, proportionate strength from ants, flight from birds without wings somehow. He can breathe underwater from fish. It seems silly until you see how he uses them. He does do a lot of flying around. That seems to be consistent for him. So he's got a friend who gets him a job. Well, gets him a television appearance, which then gets him some work superheroing. He decides to wear his jacket as part of his costume so he has somewhere to put his keys, and that's the kind of pragmatic thinking that is all the way through this attempt to make superheroes seem a little bit more believable. So this guy goes to a lab, Animal Man goes to a lab to find out about a break-in. There's a lot of controversial things going on here that he doesn't know about until the end of the story. They're basically testing on animals and trying to create a fox dye, a super anthrax. Superman shows up just to shake hands with Animal Man and then goes off to save the day. Literally 3 pages later, Animal Man finds himself in a life and death fight and Superman does not come back. It's difficult to tell if this is a wind-up or if there's a commentary there on Superman, but Animal Man ends up in a fight with this rat creature man that basically rips his arm off, and Animal Man doesn't realize until he looks over to a trash pile and finds that's where his arm is when he tries to swing a punch. So he almost dies from this, absorbs the power of worms to regenerate, which sounds stupid but is incredible. And the bad guy of the first arc is the white god of Kilimanjaro, which is an even worse idea than it sounds. I don't know if a comic in 1991 can be doing things like this ironically, but it's entirely possible. I will say no more on the matter. I have a lot more of Animal Man to read. So I'm going to let my storyboard I did from my first year of university play while I talk about storyboarding in general, because that's kind of something I want to look on this year. So the storyboard is about Maakbet, spelt the way it is there. A retelling of the Shakespeare play set in a civil war in modern Africa, maybe in the 80s or 90s, with, in theory, Andy Serkis playing the role of Maakbet. This was a brief given to me when I was at university to produce a storyboard from a couple of scenes. They gave us some mood boards to work from. I did this. They never got back to us. But the idea is, I was realizing this week that using, say, the gig economy of Fiverr, Upwork, people per hour, 5 squid, to be a storyboard artist where I can charge, in theory, say either £5 per panel or £5 per page, is something that seems far more appropriate for me and what I want to do in the time schedule I have than being a logo designer, because this kind of stuff is work but doesn't feel like work. Storyboard art also doesn't have to be highly polished. When I was looking online, there was stuff of this quality, a little bit better. There were people who were publishing full color comic books and calling them storyboards because there were no words. There's a lot of room for interpretation and how much work you want to put in, but it's also dependent on how much you want to charge. What I was seeing is that people are charging, base rates for very, very rough line work unfinished, and then they charge double for tight line work, and then they charge triple for adding grayscale on the tight line work. And so what I've produced is a combination of basic line work and basic line work with grayscale. So in theory, if I put this stuff, I just dump it on my 5squid account and then say, hey, I'm charging £5 to £10 per page. This, in theory, is credible. There are only 2 other people I could find on 5squid who offer storyboard services. That's either because no one's interested, or I've actually found a remarkable gap in the market that I can exploit. It's more than likely it's because nobody's that interested in hiring storyboard artists. When the stuff gets dark here, it's very difficult to read, but I mean, I did this in Photoshop several years ago with no clue what the hell I was doing. Not that much has changed now, but if someone's going to pay me for this, then I'll make sure it's a little bit easier to read, and there would be a back and forth between me and the client, which never happened the first time. I sent this to the university staff, they never got back to me, it never went anywhere, but this feels like something I should really try and push. And if I can use storyboard art side jobs to pay for my Adobe subscription this year, that sounds like winning to me. So that's something I might literally do today to just get it up on 5squid. I don't know. But sad clown of the week, I spent this week playing through the entire Banner Saga. It's 3 games, each of them between 5 to 10 hours each. It's about the end of the world and how you handle it as the various characters you play as. But the Banner Saga 3, sad clown of the week, because I played this game yesterday and it just wouldn't stop crashing and it was causing problems. And I finished it literally like 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's soured me on the entire experience, which was a pretty depressing one in the first place. It's about the end of the world, of course. It's not going to be so upbeat, but the fact that Banner Saga 3 cost twice as much as the other 2 because they were on sale and they were older games, and this was the one that my computer had a problem with. Yeah, sad clown of the week, but say no more. I highly recommend anyone and everyone plays Banner Saga 1. It's on console, it's on PC. It's like the Matrix trilogy. The first film is great. You don't really need to see the other 2, but if you want to know what happens, yeah, go for it. But it's because I played the first Banner Saga game a few years ago and then never played the other 2, I think I was better off imagining what would happen next without looking into it. And, your mileage might vary in regard to that. But that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 171, and I will see you next time.